Some cases haunt you for years, even though the truth has been right in front of you all along, hidden behind a veil of family prosperity. My name is Sebastian Hernandez. I am 42 years old, and I have been working as a detective in the homicide division of the Las Vegas Police Department for 18 years. On the morning of March 27th, my phone rang at 5:40 a.m. On the other end of the line, Sergeant Rodriguez gave me an address on Maple Street and added laconically, "Murder, pregnant woman." I knew that cases like this required special attention, not only because of the double tragedy, but also because time is always against us in investigations like this. The house at 4617 Maple Street was a modest, one-story building with white walls and a red tile roof. It was a typical middle-class home in this part of Las Vegas. 2 patrol cars, a crime scene vehicle, and an ambulance, which appeared to have arrived in vain, were already parked in front of the house. Officer Thompson met me at the entrance. "Detective Hernandez, the victim's name is Cassidy Chavez, 33 years old, 8 months pregnant. Her husband, Benjamin Davis, found the body at around 4 in the morning. He called 911 himself." I nodded and put on my gloves. Upon entering the house, I immediately smelled a distinctive odor, a mixture of household chemicals and something else that is difficult to describe, but is always present at the scene of a violent death. There were no signs of a struggle in the hallway. The pictures hung straight. The table by the door was in its place, with keys and a small women's purse on top of it. Cassidy Chavez's body was in the bedroom. She was lying on the bed in a beige maternity nightgown, her arms folded over her enlarged belly. At first glance, she looked as if she were simply asleep, if not for the blood stain on her chest and the smell of gunpowder that had not yet dissipated. Dr. Sofia Martinez, a medical examiner, had already examined the body. 1 gunshot wound to the chest, most likely to the heart. Death was instantaneous. The baby is also dead. The shot was fired at close range, possibly point blank. There are traces of gunpowder on the clothing. She paused and added quietly, "The shape of the wound suggests that a .38 caliber revolver or something similar was used." I carefully examined the bedroom. There were no signs of a struggle. Nothing was scattered around. The bedside table on the victim's side was in perfect order. A glass of water, a book for pregnant women, a phone charging. On the other side of the bed were men's belongings, a watch, a wallet, another phone. "Where's the husband?" I asked Thompson. "In the kitchen. He's been sitting at the table, not moving, for an hour since we arrived." I found Benjamin Davis exactly where the officer had described him. The man was sitting at a small round table, staring at one spot. He was large but not fat, with a short black beard and bloodshot eyes. He was wearing a white t-shirt and jeans, clearly the same clothes he had slept in. "Mr. Davis, I'm Detective Hernandez. I'm sorry for your loss. I understand this is difficult, but I need to ask you a few questions." He slowly raised his head. "Is she dead? Is Cassie really dead?" His voice was hoarse, as if he were screaming. "Unfortunately, yes. Tell me what happened last night." Benjamin covered his face with his hands. "I don't know. I worked late last night and got home around 11. Cassie was already asleep. I took a shower and went to bed. Then I woke up to a noise, maybe a gunshot, but I thought I was dreaming. Then I woke up again and saw blood on her chest." He began to sob. "Did you hear anything before that? Voices? Sounds of a struggle?" "No, nothing. I don't even remember when I woke up. Time stopped." He looked at me with pleading eyes. "Who could have done this? Cassie never hurt anyone." "Mr. Davis, where do you work?" "I'm a bus driver for the city. I've been on the route for 12 years. Yesterday was Saturday, and we had an extra shift because of the casino." "Do you have any weapons in the house?" He shook his head. "No, I don't approve of weapons. Neither did Cassie." I left Benjamin with the officer and went out to talk to the neighbors. An elderly Mr. and Mrs. Johnson lived to the right of the house. Mrs. Johnson, a woman in her 70s wearing a pink robe, met me at the door. "The officer already asked us. We didn't hear anything, although we did see Benny come home late last night. He slammed the car door loudly. We even thought he'd been drinking." "Was everything else quiet?" "Yes. Cassie was such a sweet girl. She always said hello and asked how we were. Recently, she asked her husband to assemble a crib in the garage. They were so looking forward to this child." The Martinez family lived next door. The father, Roberto, told a similar story. Nothing suspicious. We watched football all evening yesterday and went to bed early. If there had been a shot in the house, we would have heard it. The walls are thin. Back at the house, I met with Detective Dave Washington. Detective, we have something interesting. There are no signs of forced entry, not on the doors or windows. Either she knew the killer and let him in, or the killer had keys. What about the weapon? We haven't found it yet. We searched the house, the garage, the yard. Maybe the killer took it with him. I asked Dave to take Benjamin's fingerprints to rule him out and began to examine the house in more detail. In the kitchen, there were photos on the refrigerator, pictures of a happy family life. Benjamin and Cassidy at their wedding, on vacation, taking selfies together. Separately, there were several ultrasound photos of their unborn child. In the desk in the living room, I found the family's documents, checks, bills, insurance. All the financial documents were in order, no debts or problems in sight. However, one detail caught my attention: Cassidy's employment reference. Before going on maternity leave, she had worked as a cashier at the Golden Sand Casino. Casinos are always a world of big money, shady deals, and people with questionable pasts. Maybe one of the customers had it in for Cassidy. There could have been conflicts with players who were unhappy about losing big. Or maybe she accidentally witnessed something she shouldn't have seen. I decided to talk to Benjamin again, but in more detail. Mr. Davis, your wife worked at a casino before she got pregnant. Did she ever mention any problems at work? Conflicts with customers or colleagues? He thought for a moment. Cassie loved her job. She sometimes complained about drunk players, but nothing serious. She said security was always around if anything happened. Do you know any of her co-workers? Maybe someone came to visit you? Not really. She was friends with a woman named Rhonda, a nurse. But from the casino, I don't remember any names. Did she have any enemies? Anyone who might have wanted her dead? Benjamin shook his head firmly. No, everyone loved her. She was an angel. After talking to her husband, I instructed the officers to gather more information about Cassidy's work at the casino and asked Dr. Martinez to expedite the autopsy. I also gave orders to check surveillance camera footage in the area. Perhaps someone had seen suspicious cars or people. Around 10 in the morning, I left the scene. The first few hours of an investigation are always the most important, and I was already forming a working theory. Perhaps Cassidy had been the victim of a conflict related to her work at the casino. The large sums of money that pass through the hands of cashiers every day could be a motive for crime. Maybe she noticed suspicious activity, money laundering, card fraud, or something else. The Golden Sand Casino would be my next stop. On my way back to the station, I thought about how cold and calculated the killer had been. There were no signs of passion or sudden impulse. A shot to the heart at close range suggests that the killer knew what they were doing. But why Cassidy? What did she know or see? And why wasn't the killer afraid to break into the house where her husband was sleeping? Too many questions and too few answers, but I knew one thing: this case wasn't going to be easy. The Golden Sand Casino took up an entire block on the Las Vegas Strip. Even on a Monday morning, it was bustling with tourists and local gamblers trying their luck. I parked at the main entrance and headed inside. Neon lights, the sound of slot machines, the smell of cigarette smoke and air conditioning all created a special atmosphere of money and risk. I walked through the gaming hall to the administrative area, showed my badge to the security guard, and asked him to call the manager. A few minutes later, a woman in her mid-40s in a strict business suit came out to meet me. Detective, I'm Patricia Simmons, the Human Resources Manager. I heard something terrible happened to Cassidy Chavez. Is that true? Unfortunately, yes. Miss Chavez has been murdered. I need to talk to the people who worked with her. Can you arrange some meetings? Patricia looked shaken. Of course. Cassidy was one of our best employees. Everyone loved her. Let's go to my office, and I'll call the people. Patricia's office was on the second floor, overlooking the gaming tables below. The walls were decorated with photos of corporate events and casino awards. Tell me about Cassidy. How long did she work here? Almost 5 years. She came in as a young girl, learned quickly, and became one of our most reliable cashiers. She never had any problems counting money, and the customers respected her. Patricia paused. In the last few months before she went on maternity leave, she seemed a little anxious, but I chalked it up to pregnancy. What do you mean, anxious? Well, she started looking around more often. Once she asked if we had any security problems, but nothing specific. I first questioned Roberto Gonzalez, Cassidy's colleague at the cash register. He was a man of about 35 who had worked alongside her for the past 3 years. Cassidy was a good person, hardworking, honest, but in recent months, something had been bothering her. She started talking less and often seemed lost in thought. Roberto, did you notice anything unusual in the behavior of customers or colleagues towards Cassidy? Roberto thought for a moment. The customers treated her well. She was polite and worked quickly. As for her colleagues, well, everyone knew she had a special friendship with one of the security guards. A special friendship? Ethan Walker. He was often on duty in our section. They talked a lot. Sometimes they met during lunch breaks. Colleagues joked that there was something going on between them. And what did you think about that? I tried not to get involved in personal matters, but it was obvious that they had a special relationship. Next was Trisha Wilson, another cashier, a young woman who often worked the same shift as Cassidy. Cassidy was like an older sister to me. She taught me all the ins and outs of the job, but in the last few months she became kind of withdrawn. Trisha, did Cassidy talk about her personal life? About her family? Trisha hesitated. Well, she said she was pregnant, very happy, but there were other things. What things? She sometimes got calls on her work phone, not official ones. She spoke quietly and ended the conversation quickly. Once I heard her say, "Ethan, don't call here." What else did you notice? When Ethan was on duty in our sector, Cassidy became more animated. They would exchange glances and smile at each other, but when other employees were around, she tried to act more formal. Did you think they were having an affair? I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Cassidy was married and pregnant, but yes, it seemed like there was something more than just a working relationship between them. I asked Patricia to show me the surveillance footage from Cassidy's last few months at work. The casino's video surveillance system was one of the most advanced in the city. As I reviewed the footage, I noticed what the employees had described. Ethan Walker was indeed often near Cassidy's workstation. They were talking, and it was clear that their conversation was not strictly business. In one clip, I saw them leaving the building together at the end of the day. In another, Ethan was bringing Cassidy coffee. "Who is that security guard?" I asked Patricia, pointing to the screen. "That's Ethan Walker. He's been with us for about 2 years. He's a good employee, reliable." "Where can I find him?" "He's off today, but I can give you his address and phone number." Leaving the casino, I headed for Rhonda Williams' address. She lived in a small neighborhood 20 minutes drive from downtown Las Vegas, in a middle-class apartment building. Rhonda opened the door as soon as I knocked. She was a woman in her mid-30s, short, with short hair and tired eyes. She was wearing a white coat with the logo of a local clinic. "Detective Hernandez? I heard about Cassidy. Is it true?" "Unfortunately, yes. I need to ask you a few questions. Can I come in?" The apartment was small but cozy. We sat down in the living room where medical magazines and children's toys lay on the coffee table. "Mrs. Williams, when was the last time you spoke to Cassidy?" "Last night. She called around 8. Rhonda nervously crumpled a napkin in her hands. "What did you talk about?" "The usual things. She complained that it was hard to walk, that she was going to give birth soon. I advised her to get more rest." I noticed that Rhonda was avoiding direct eye contact. "Mrs. Williams, did Cassidy seem troubled to you lately? Did she mention any problems?" Rhonda paused too long. "She was worried about some things." "What things?" "She sometimes talked about work, about being tired of the constant stress. The casino is a place where you always have to be on your toes." "Anything else?" Rhonda stood up and walked over to the window. "Detective, Cassidy was my best friend. I promised her." "What did you promise her?" "She shared things with me that she shouldn't have told anyone. But now that she's gone..." "Rhonda, if you want to find your friend's killer, you have to tell me everything." She came back and sat down across from me. Cassidy was cheating on her husband. The words hung in the air. I had expected something like this, but it was still an important revelation. "With whom?" "With Ethan. Ethan Walker. He works as a security guard at the same casino. How long has this been going on? About a year, maybe a little longer. They met irregularly, in secret. Cassidy said it just happened, that she didn't plan it. What about the baby? Did you know Cassidy was pregnant? Rhonda covered her face with her hands. She wasn't sure who the father was. Did Benjamin know about the affair? Cassidy didn't think so. But in the last few weeks, she was afraid he suspected something. He was asking strange questions and getting jealous. Rhonda, why didn't Cassidy divorce her husband if she was having an affair? She didn't say she loved Ethan. It was complicated. She felt guilty. And then when she found out she was pregnant, it made everything even more complicated. Tell me more about Ethan. What do you know about him? Not much. Cassidy didn't go into details. I know he's a few years younger than her. He's divorced. He lives alone. She said he was a good man, but their relationship was complicated. And recently, did she mention any problems with Ethan? Yes, she wanted to end the relationship. She said it wasn't right, especially now that the baby was on the way. But Ethan didn't want to let her go. Did he threaten her? I don't think he threatened her, but he became more insistent. He called often and wanted to see her. Cassidy said he wanted her to leave her husband. Rhonda, do you think Ethan could have killed Cassidy? She was silent for a long time. I can't believe he's capable of that. But people do strange things when they're jealous or rejected. What about Benjamin? Could he have been jealous enough? Benny was always a calm guy, but if he found out about the affair, I don't know, men can be unpredictable in situations like that. After talking to Rhonda, I had a lot more information. A love triangle, doubts about the paternity of the child, possible jealousy on the part of the husband. All of this provided new motives for murder. The next step was to find Ethan Walker. I drove to the address Patricia had given me. Ethan lived in a simple residential complex next to a casino in a small apartment on the second floor. I climbed the stairs and knocked on the door. No one was home. A middle-aged man peeked out from the neighboring apartment. Are you looking for Ethan? He left early this morning with a bag. He said he was going to his sister's for the weekend. Do you know where his sister lives? Somewhere in Henderson, I think. Back at the station, I asked my colleagues to find the contact information for Ethan Walker's relatives. I also instructed them to check his financial records and possible criminal connections. An hour later, I was given the address of Ethan's sister in Henderson. I drove there and met him around 6 in the evening near his sister's house. Ethan Walker looked exactly as I had expected from the descriptions. A black man in his late 20s, athletic build, with alert eyes. When he saw my badge, his face paled. Mr. Walker, I'm Detective Hernandez. I need to talk to you about Cassidy Chavez. Cassidy? What about her? She's dead. She was killed last night. Ethan froze, all the emotions on his face, shock, grief, fear, seemed genuine. No, that can't be true. I'm afraid it is. We need to talk. We got into my car, where I could control the situation. Mr. Walker, what was your relationship with Cassidy Chavez? He was silent for almost a minute, struggling with himself. We had a relationship. What kind of relationship? Romantic. We were lovers. How long? About a year, maybe a little longer. Tell me about this relationship. Ethan sighed heavily. It just happened. We worked in the same building and ran into each other a lot. At first we just talked, then I knew she was married, but I couldn't stop. What about the baby? Did you know Cassidy was pregnant? Yes, she told me when she found out. Is it your child? Ethan looked me in the eyes. Maybe. Cassidy wasn't sure. The timing, it was close. How did you feel about the uncertainty of paternity? It tore my heart apart. I wanted the child to be mine. I wanted Cassidy to leave her husband, but she refused. Where were you last night between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m.? At home, alone, watching TV, then I went to bed. Any witnesses? No. Mr. Walker, when was the last time you saw Cassidy? A week ago. We met at a cafe near the hospital where she was being treated. She wanted to end our relationship. How did you react? I was upset. I asked her to think about it again. I told her we could be happy together, that I was willing to raise the child as my own. And how did she respond? She said it was impossible. that she didn't want to destroy Benjamin's family, that after the baby was born we would do a DNA test and decide what to do next. Did you threaten her? No, never. I loved her. I would never hurt her. What about her husband? Did Benjamin know about the relationship? Ethan thought for a moment. Cassidy was worried about that. In the last few weeks, she said he was acting strangely, asking questions about her pregnancy, about the baby's development. Maybe he suspected something. Mr. Walker, do you think her husband could have been jealous enough to kill her? I didn't know Benjamin personally. Cassidy said he was a quiet man. But if he found out about the affair, people are capable of anything when they're hurt. After questioning Ethan, I let him go but asked him not to leave town. The story he told was consistent, but he had no alibi. On my way back to the station, I analyzed the new information. Cassidy had indeed had an affair with Ethan Walker. The child could have been either man's. That gave both Ethan, if she had rejected him, and Benjamin, if he had found out about the affair, a motive for murder. Now I had to talk to Benjamin Davis again, but this time armed with the knowledge of his wife's infidelity. Tomorrow I planned a confrontation that would shed light on the true motives behind this murder. On Tuesday morning, I arrived at the station with a clear plan of action. I had spent the night thinking over all the information I had gathered, and the picture was beginning to take shape. Cassidy's infidelity, the doubts about paternity, Benjamin's nervousness in recent weeks, all of this pointed to the fact that the husband might know more than he was letting on. First, I requested detailed phone records for the Davis-Chavez family for the past 3 months. I also asked technicians to analyze the victim's and her husband's cell phones, which had been seized at the scene. An hour later, I had printouts of the phone calls on my desk. The picture was clear. In recent weeks, the number of calls between Cassidy and Ethan had increased dramatically. Some conversations lasted half an hour or more, but Benjamin's calls were particularly interesting. It turned out that 3 weeks ago he had called a private detective agency called Nevada Investigations. The conversation lasted 20 minutes. The next day there was another call to the same number, this time lasting only 5 minutes. A week later, Benjamin called a laboratory that specialized in DNA testing. I immediately contacted the agency. The secretary initially cited confidentiality, but when I explained that this was a murder investigation, she agreed to connect me with the detective who was handling Benjamin's case. Detective James Carlton, a man with a hoarse voice, was brief. Yes, Mr. Davis contacted us. He suspected his wife of cheating. We conducted surveillance for a week. His suspicions were confirmed. His wife was seeing a man who worked at the same casino. We gave him the photos and the report. When was that? 2 weeks ago. He took the news very hard. He asked if the child could be someone else's. And what did you say? We told him that a DNA test would be necessary after the baby was born. But judging by the timing, both options were possible. My next step was to talk to the neighbors again, but with more specific questions. When I visited the Martinez family, I learned some additional details. Detective, now that you mention it, I remember. For the last 2 weeks, we often heard voices coming from Cassidy's house. Not arguments, but tense conversations. Benny was speaking louder than usual, said Maria Martinez. And last night? Did you hear anything? Yes. Around 9 o'clock there was a short argument. Benny was shouting something about lies and betrayal. Cassidy responded, but more quietly. Then everything went quiet. Roberta Martinez added, I also saw Benny taking a large plastic bag out to the trash cans this morning. It was early, around 5 in the morning. It seemed strange. I asked the forensic team to check the trash cans. Among other things, they found scraps of photographs, the same ones taken by the private investigator. The photos showed Cassidy and Ethan embracing near the cafe. They also found an empty package of the sleeping pill Zolpidem in the trash. According to the information on the package, the medication had been purchased at a pharmacy a week earlier. The name of the purchaser was Benjamin Davis. Armed with new evidence, I decided to question Benjamin again, this time at the police station in an official setting. Benjamin arrived at the station around 2 in the afternoon. He looked even more exhausted than the day before. His eyes were red, he hadn't shaved, and he was wearing the same clothes. Mr. Davis, I have a few more questions for you. You have the right to an attorney. I don't need a lawyer. I have nothing to hide. Okay, Mr. Davis, we checked your phone records. You contacted a private detective agency 3 weeks ago. Why? Benjamin visibly tensed. I had doubts about my wife's fidelity. And what did the detectives tell you? A long pause. They confirmed my suspicions. Cassidy was cheating on me. With whom? With some security guard from a casino. Ethan, I think. How long have you known about the affair? 2 weeks. And how did you feel when you found out? I was devastated. We've been married for 5 years. I thought we were happy. Mr. Davis, did you tell your wife that you knew about the affair? No. I didn't know how to bring it up, especially considering she was pregnant. But neighbors heard you arguing in the last few weeks. Benjamin clenched his fists. We argued about different things. Money, the future. I was trying to figure out if she still loved me. What about the baby? Did you have doubts that it was yours? I don't know. The timing was close. The detective said we needed a DNA test. Mr. Davis, why did you buy sleeping pills last week? He flinched. I've been having trouble sleeping after I found out I couldn't sleep. But the medication is prescribed for long-term use, and you only bought 1 pack. And what's more, the same sleeping pill was found in your wife's blood. I don't understand what you're talking about. Mr. Davis, tell me the truth about what happened last night. Benjamin began to sweat. I already told you. I came home, Cassidy was asleep, and in the morning I found her dead. That's not true, Mr. Davis. Neighbors heard an argument around 9 o'clock in the evening, an argument about lies and betrayal. Okay, we had a fight. I asked her directly about Ethan. She didn't deny it. And then what? She said it was over between them, that after the baby was born, we would do a DNA test, that regardless of the results, she wanted to keep the family together. You believed her? I wanted to believe her. But I saw the photos. I saw the way she looked at him. It wasn't just a fling. Mr. Davis, pieces of photographs showing your wife and Ethan were found in the trash near your home. There was also an empty package of sleeping pills. Explain that. Benjamin was silent for almost a minute. I could see him struggling with himself. Mr. Davis, we have reason to suspect you of murdering your wife. I advise you to tell the truth. I didn't kill her, he shouted. Then explain how the sleeping pills got into her bloodstream. I gave her a pill. Why? She was upset after our conversation. She was crying. She said she couldn't sleep. I gave her half a pill to help her calm down. And that's all? Yes. Then I went to the garage. I was thinking. I couldn't come to terms with what I had found out. How long were you in the garage? I don't know, maybe an hour, maybe more. And then? Then I went back into the house. Cassidy was asleep. I lay down next to her. Mr. Davis, where is the weapon used to kill your wife? What weapon? We don't have any weapons in our house. We have a warrant for your arrest on suspicion of the murder of Cassidy Chavez. I handed him the document. Benjamin stood up abruptly. This is a mistake. I didn't kill her. I loved her. Mr. Davis, please turn around and put your hands behind your back. Instead, he lunged for the door. I grabbed his arm, but he broke free and ran down the hallway. Officer Thompson, who was on duty at the exit, tried to stop him, but Benjamin knocked him down and ran out into the street. The chase lasted about 10 minutes. Benjamin ran through the city streets, pushing passers-by and knocking over street stalls. He was in good physical shape from his job as a bus driver, but adrenaline and panic took their toll. Near the park, he tripped and fell. When we caught up with him, he was lying on the ground, breathing heavily. He didn't resist anymore. At the station, after Benjamin had been treated by medics and given water, I resumed the interrogation. This time, he was more broken. Mr. Davis, trying to escape only makes your situation worse. It's time to tell the truth. He sat silently for a long time, staring at the floor. Then he slowly raised his head. All right, I killed her, but it wasn't what you think. Tell me how it happened. After our conversation, I gave her a sleeping pill. I went to the garage to try to calm down, but I kept thinking about her and Ethan, about the fact that the child might not be mine, about how our life was a lie. And then what? I remembered the revolver. It was in the garage, in my father's toolbox. I had forgotten about it. I picked it up, checked it. It was loaded. Why did you take the gun? I don't know. I don't think I planned to kill her. Maybe I wanted to scare her. to make her tell the truth about who the child's father was. What happened in the bedroom? Benjamin began to cry. I stood there looking at her. She was sleeping so peacefully. Her hands were on her stomach, as if she was protecting the child. And I thought, what if it's not mine? What if this whole picture of happiness is a lie? And you fired? She opened her eyes. She looked at me, then at the gun. She said, Benny, please. And it wasn't a plea for mercy. It was as if she understood that she deserved it. And then I pulled the trigger. What did you do after you fired? I stood there for a few minutes. I couldn't believe it was real. Then I took the gun and drove to Lake Mead. I threw it in the water. And then I went home. I washed my hands, changed my clothes. I lay down in bed next to the body. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. At around 4 a.m, I called the police. I said I had just found her dead. Why didn't you confess right away? I didn't want to go to prison. I thought maybe no one would find out. Maybe everyone would believe it was a robbery or something. Mr. Davis, do you understand that you killed not only your wife, but also your unborn child? He started crying again, even harder. I know. I think about it every second. If I could turn back time. What about Ethan? Did you plan to kill him too? No. I hated him, but Cassidy was just as guilty as he was. She was my wife. She should have been faithful. Mr. Davis, you will be formally charged with first-degree murder. You have the right to an attorney. I don't need a lawyer. I'm ready to confess. I just want everyone to know that I loved her. I loved her until the very end, and that's why I couldn't forgive her. The interrogation was over. Benjamin Davis was officially arrested for the murder of his wife, Cassidy Chavez, and their unborn child. The next day, divers found a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver in Lake Mead. Ballistics confirmed that Cassidy had been killed with that weapon. When I told Ethan Walker about Benjamin's confession, he broke down and cried like a child. He blamed himself for the death of the woman he loved. Rhonda Williams was also deeply affected by the tragedy, believing she should have done more to help her friend. The case was solved in 3 days. No casino fraud, no criminal connections, no organized crime. Just a family drama that ended in tragedy. Jealousy, betrayal, and an inability to forgive led to the deaths of 2 innocent people. Benjamin Davis was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In prison, he became a quiet, withdrawn man who spends his days in the library reading books on family psychology and forgiveness. But he never found forgiveness for himself.